Men of Reddit, when did you last cry and why? Crying in my car right now. My wife has cancer. It scares me to death. I have to be brave at home. My car has become my place to escape, to cry and release my fear and sorrow. 3 years ago. In my father's funeral. Few weeks ago. Friend died. Cried myself to sleep for a few nights. At the hospital with my 2-year-old daughter. She just had a seizure in the waiting room. I felt so lost and useless. But it cut the wait time down to seconds. I don't remember. I feel so sad and lonely sometimes, but I still can't cry. I wish I could cry like a kid again. January 4th. On January 1st, I got a message from my dad that the family dog had a stroke and passed away in the front yard. During the time before I stood at his grave just before I left to head back to my home, I just didn't cry. I was questioning why I wasn't. Then standing at his grave, just a rush of emotions came in and just sobbed my heart out, then got in the car with my girlfriend and had to drive home. His name was Snitchell and he was a good 14-year-old pupper. I'm 21, so he was a part of my life for about 70% of it. Was hard to say goodbye, especially because I wasn't able to see him on Christmas because I got COVID, and I didn't get to see him open his Christmas gifts like he usually does, during Christmas and in general during his final days. I was laying on the couch staring at the ceiling and my eye teared up from being open too long, and I was like, I forget how this feels, so I let him keep going, wasn't sobbing but multiple tears running down, felt good. Tonight. My best friend told me that I don't make her happy, and that she doesn't want me in her life anymore. I'm in love with her. About 2 years ago, was dealing with a lot of work and personal shit, was at my limit of shit I can handle. I get a phone call that a childhood friend that I've known since we were 4 died in a car accident. Last night, just thinking about my mom. My mom passed away at 46 years old unexpectedly 10 months ago. I still cry alone in bed 2 or 3 times a month. I had went 2 months with being angry at her and barely talking to her because I didn't agree with some of her decisions. I had just finally made up with her and had dinner at her house on a Friday as a family. That Saturday night she was at a bar and called me and we had the funniest conversation I think we've ever had. I was actually crying laughing. That Monday I got the call that she collapsed in the bathroom and my younger brother found her after what we were told by EMTs was an hour since she passed. I still think every day about how I could have showed my love better and how I could have treated her better. Last night sent my girlfriend a basic good night message. She replied back with I love you. Sat there and started crying over the fact that she is the most important person in my life and that I'm so lucky that this woman loves me. A few days ago. Broke down due to stress over everyday things. Last night. I heard Follow You to Virgie by Tyler Childers for the first time and memories of my mom hit me like a freight train. She's been gone for 28 years now, but when you least expect it the waterworks can come out of nowhere. Felt good if I'm honest. December last year, my wife shared with me that we are pregnant. It's something we have both wanted for such a long time. When she showed me the test I was so happy I just burst into tears right in front of her. May 2021. My wife had a cerebral stroke. I thought that I will lose her, by death or by being a vegetable / incapable of communication. I felt like a log at the sea, purposeless, aimless. We have a daughter and I knew that I should remain strong for her, but my wife gave me purpose. Without her, I'm incomplete. I'm less. Just for God's grace she survived with almost no side effects. Last September. There was a recent shooting here. While it was happening, my kids were getting texts on who it was and all of their internet postings. His intentions were to shoot up their high school on the first day of class. He got impatient, and instead shot up our local grocery store a week before. My daughter asked me if she could skip the first day of school. It was that moment that I realized our society had completely failed our children. We talked about it and she mentioned that everybody thinks it is pathetic that older people have completely given up on them. That is when I realized that they are just as intelligent as we are, and they realize that all of us adults are pathetic. We just let people kill them and they recognize that. 2 weeks ago, when it really hit me how much I let my managers abuse me. I quit a few days later and I start my new job on the 27th. I've been posting this a lot lately. Several weeks ago my former best friend and neighbor either broke into my house or had someone else do it for him and stole money from me. When I confronted him about this, he physically assaulted me. The punches and the throwing me into the hedges cracking my ribs didn't make me cry. I took it, but later on when I realized he was in only using me and our friendship was completely a sham and was permanently severed is when I broke down. I still haven't gotten over it. My ribs are finally healed and the bruises are gone. I do have a nasty scar on my eyebrow though that might never go away, but even today I still feel sad over losing what I thought was a good friend. A month ago when speaking about the possibility of having to do a long-distance relationship if I get sent to a different state for residency after medical school. I did LDR with my last girlfriend for 3 years and have a lot of trauma from it. I swore I'd never do it again. Now I'm in love with someone new and am working on breaking down barriers that I put up to protect myself. I think during the conversation it all came crashing down emotionally. Just now, after reading some of these comments. Just sliced 2 giant red onions for dinner and my eyes are still watering. Everyone seems to be posting serious stuff, but actually the last I cried was a few weeks ago when I watched EP3 of The Last of Us. Earlier today, reading a story about a 6-year-old kid that was gunned down by his shit stepfather. His gap-toothed smile in the photo set me off. I cannot comprehend the capacity to harm children like that. Last week, just really struggling to get good rest. I was barely getting 4 hours a night and I was just feeling all the anxiety, hurt and stuff I've been carrying for a while now. I felt extremely alone, used and just absolutely manipulated and just useless. It's those dark nights where you feel like you could just disappear and no one would notice. Hey man, let me tell you, it's been a while since I last cried. But, that's not because I'm trying to be tough or anything. I just haven't been in a situation where I felt like crying. I think it's important for guys to recognize that it's okay to cry and show emotions. The last time I cried was when my grandpa passed away a few years ago. It was really tough to say goodbye to him and I couldn't hold back the tears. It felt good to let it all out though, and I think it helped me to process my emotions and come to terms with his passing. So, guys, don't be afraid to cry when you need to. It's a sign of strength, not weakness. Recent breakup. Everything was going great and then one day she just said she wasn't attracted to me. Really hurts one's self-image. January 2022, I was depressed for a very long time, 2008 until beginning of last year. I didn't realize I was depressed. It got much worse the last year due to relationship/friendship stuff and decided to deal with it. Went to therapy for 2 sessions thinking the reason was the relationship stuff. I stopped going to the sessions when I realized that I basically had tons of suppressed emotions from bullying, getting beat up, harassment and exclusion from people that I thought were my friends while growing up. So I went from not crying for more than a decade to twice per week for a few months. Haven't cried since. A couple of years ago I had a dream about my mom. I was just talking, catching up, then I remembered she passed away. I just hugged her and started crying, yelling I miss you. She hugged me back and said I miss you too. Then I woke up and cried for 30 minutes. Our dog died. I cried like a baby. First time in years. Visited my long-distance girlfriend a couple weeks back. Those last days are always the hardest. Said goodbye to her, came back to my hotel room and wept. I'll be flying to see her again soon enough though, it's all just part of being long distance, for now. Last night, I was watching the investigation on HBO Max, which is about the police investigation of the murder of Kim Wall, the submarine one. It was incredibly moving watching the parents coming to terms with what happened, and it moved me to tears. Amazingly acted and directed drama, extremely understated but brilliantly done. Last night, a picture of me and my buddy who took his life couple years popped up. I lost my job today. I want to cry but can't. The last time was probably my grandmother's funeral, and even then I tried really hard to stop myself from crying. I'm not sure why. The funny thing is I'm always ready to cry, I just never do. I'm like the Hulk, but instead of anger, it's tears. I have a cat. One day he got sick, and when the vet checked on him he said he needed to go to surgery right away. The chances of survival were low. Came back home that day bawling my eyes out thinking it was all over. He was so happy and normal one day, and the next he was at risk of dying. Luckily the 2 surgeries went great and he survived. The very last time I cried feels like a stupid reason, so I'll not specify that, but prior to that I had cried back in September at the passing of my aunt. She had stage 4 cancer and I was unable to contact her or talk to her or even go up on an emergency trip to go see her before she passed, when everyone else in the house had at least gotten that chance. She was the greatest person, and it stings to this day that I couldn't get a chance to say goodbye.